Welcome back. It's time for business, and I'm joined by Owen Fairclough. Hello again, Owen. Starting off, of course, with Peugeot. It's a big day for them, isn't it?
Yeah, and a big day perhaps for the French auto industry as a whole, Claire, which has had a pretty rotten last 3 or 4 years. Peugeot is no exception. And just a few months ago, this company was told that plans to cut 8,000 jobs were unacceptable. But in a few hours from now, a government report is likely to suggest that maybe it's a little bit more palatable than it was during the summer. Peugeot has been one of the biggest victims of the French auto industry crisis. Its fortunes have declined so much in the last year or so that it's now no longer considered one of France's blue chip companies. William Hildebrand has more details.
A heavyweight in the auto industry. Last week, Peugeot Citroën, Europe's second biggest car maker, found out it's to be knocked off the CAC 40 after shares declined more than 60% over the past year. The company's sales have plunged in Italy, Spain, and France, countries with sluggish economies. Peugeot Citroën is an icon of French industry. With 100,000 workers and 60 billion euros in annual sales. But in July, the company said it was burning through 200 million euros in cash per month and that it had to cut 8,000 jobs. Many of these layoffs would occur at the Aulnay-sous-Bois factory outside of Paris. France is already facing its highest unemployment rate in more than a decade, and the recently elected French president campaigned on reindustrializing the country.
An expert will assess Peugeot's finances first, then there'll be a consultation. The current proposal is unacceptable. It has to be renegotiated.
Analysts say the company's decline is indicative of a broader industrial decline across the country. The French government is set to release a report on Peugeot's restructuring plans. On Monday, the company celebrated 100 years at its historic Sochaux plant. But instead of standing the test of time, Peugeot looks fragile in its old age.
So a bittersweet centenary for that Peugeot factory in eastern France as the company's future is played out at the top of government. But that report might actually validate Peugeot's argument.
Indeed, and really that'll be no surprise to anybody that's followed the kind of numbers that Peugeot have put out over the last few months, Claire. This is a company, as we heard there, that's losing around 200 million euros a month. It recorded an overall loss in the first half of this year of over 800 million euros. It has a pretty good cash pile though. It's got around €1 billion in cash, which partly explains why this company hasn't gone bust yet, but it simply cannot go on like that, losing that kind of money every month. One of Peugeot's biggest problems is that it's been too slow to globalize. When you compare it to the likes of Renault, which has had a partnership with Nissan for the past decade or so, Peugeot's come quite late to the game there, and the problem is most of its market is here in Europe. As we heard in that report, it's trying to sell cars in countries where people can't afford them anymore, countries like Italy and Spain. These are where it's suffering some of the biggest losses, and it's simply making cars that Europeans really aren't buying in the kind of numbers that it needs to sell right now.
But the government, the French government, will ultimately want jobs to stay in France.
And this is the position it's in. Remember, we had President François Hollande making that big pitch just a little earlier this week, talking about trying to revitalise the economy, get that unemployment rate down from nearly 10%. The problem is the French government has got form on getting into trouble before with trying to over-subsidise car makers. You might remember President Nicolas Sarkozy, before François Hollande, he effectively tried to subsidise Renault by trying to lure jobs back from Eastern Europe. He ran into trouble with European authorities over that. François Hollande's government has talked about trying to turn the factory outside Paris for Peugeot that might be shut down into some sort of hub for manufacturing. That's really about as far as he can go, though. He can't really outright subsidise Peugeot because he'll run into trouble. The best solution for Peugeot right now is to expand in those markets where it's actually selling cars. We've seen Peugeot Citroën sell its sales up around 15% in countries like Russia. That's pretty good, even for a car company that's in trouble right now. China as well is looking quite good, a big growth market. And that's really where this company is going to have to invest to make its money, which won't be good news for people like François Hollande, who wants to keep jobs in France.
Well, Peugeot's share price actually edged up around 0.5% in trading on Monday, but markets are beating a retreat overall. We're just about 10 minutes away from the close of trading in Japan. The Nikkei is down by 1%. The Hang Seng is also down by around 0.7%.
Okay, that's the picture on the markets for you. Let's get a few more of the day's business headlines now. The government of Qatar is under pressure to support a $37 billion takeover offer by commodities trader Glencore for mining firm Xstrata. The Middle Eastern state is Glencore's biggest shareholder, but it had refused to support a previous offer earlier this year. The bid has now been raised to offer Xstrata investors more than 3 Glencore shares for every one they hold.
The new chief executive of Barclays says he will scrap risky investments that take up too much of the bank's capital. Anthony Jenkins made his first public remarks since being appointed to turn around the reputation of the UK bank. Barclays was fined nearly £300 million for rigging interbank lending rates during the global financial crisis.
And US stock exchange operator Nasdaq has drawn a line in the sand over compensating clients for the disastrous Facebook flotation. Nasdaq says it won't pay out more than $62 million in damages for firms who lost heavily when a computer glitch delayed the social network's market debut by 30 minutes. Nasdaq has increased its compensation offer, but clients including UBS and Citigroup are asking financial regulators to reject the deal.
Now, they say necessity is the mother of all invention, and so it proved for one taxi driver in the Gaza Strip. He's built Gaza's first electric car entirely out of scrap.
It draws plenty of curious stares, but this vehicle is no toy, rather Gaza City's first ever electrically powered vehicle. The car's environmental credentials are impeccable. Not only does it run on electricity, it was also entirely crafted out of recycled materials. If you're after speed though, perhaps it's not your thing. The car can only go up to 19 kilometers an hour, while it takes around 5 hours to charge the battery. It's all the brainchild of taxi driver Monza Al-Kassas, who became increasingly frustrated by the sporadic fuel supplies in Gaza, a result of the Israeli blockade.
I was waiting in petrol stations for long hours and days, and sometimes I did not get gasoline. The fuel crisis is an old crisis, and Palestine is not an oil producer. So I decided to think about a new alternative, to become self-reliant, and I made this electric car.
The car took several months to build and cost the political science graduate €800. Not only is it environmentally sound, Monza has also made it accessible for all sectors of society.
It is an alternative car, and a car with a new system. It's controlled through the hands, not by the legs, and it's possible for people with special needs and disabled people to use it.
And he isn't finished there. Monza is also working on further inventions to help people with disabilities, including a TV remote control that can be operated by the user's tongue.
You know, maybe that's something that Peugeot could invest in, Claire. We're talking about emerging markets being the growth area for this company. Maybe a memo to the CEO to have a spin on that. It looked a bit like a golf cart, didn't it? But
it did. Very much
good.
like one.
We'll, of course, have the latest on Peugeot. That decision, or not that decision, that report from the government will be out at around 10 a.m. Paris time. We'll have live updates from the French Finance Ministry and from the Peugeot factory just outside Paris.
All right, thank you very much, Owen, and thank you for watching. Do stay tuned to France 24.